Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'anite.com. Today is Wednesday the 4th of September 2019. And today I want to discuss the pressures and the, I suppose, the counting the cost and so on when one chooses to serve God alone. I know that in our life there was a point where, we had to make a decision. Do we go with the career and all the rest of it, or do we go for the higher rewards, in eternity? And so that's one part of it. But I think there's a related part of it, and perhaps it's, as a man, it's easier for me to think, relate to men. But I assume women go through a sort of a parallel process. Is can we do this with children? It's quite tempting to think that, I'll wait until I retire. I'll wait until this. I'll wait until, we're comfortable financially. I'll wait until the children are grown up. I'll wait until, wait until you're dead. Do you know what I mean? I think it was John Lennon who said, life is what happens while you're making other plans. And so I'm not really telling other people what they should do. That isn't the gist of this channel anyway. I'm just discussing I want to discuss a particular couple of verses, but I think this is quite a common experience, so that's why I'm addressing it. If I go full bore for God, what about the children? What about this? And a related question is, can you have children? Is it even worth having children now? Once you know what's going on in the world, how satanic and evil it is. It can be a tough one to decide whether or not to have children even. I'm not here to give you advice. That isn't what I'm talking about. But I do want to share a particular verse from the Qur'an, or a section from the Qur'an, which perhaps is quite easy to read very superficially and not get the full import of it. So I think these are common fears, and I have been asked this a few times about whether or not it's really even worth having children. And again, I'm not here to give you sort of family planning advice or anything like that, but I want to look at the story of Musa. And like most of the people on this channel, I've read this story, and there are several iterations of this story in the Qur'an, and I've read it several times. I've in the last few months even. It's just, as I'm sure other people have, but it's very easy just to skip or to miss the import of the grammar. The grammar really gives you an insight into it. So in brief, we all know the backstory. Musa fled from the land of Fir'aun, and he landed in Madian, where at the watering hole he waters the sheep of these two girls. One of them comes back and invites him to eat with her family, with the father. They talk, and Musa agrees to marry one of the daughters in return for a period of working for the father of either 8 years as a minimum, or possibly even 10. Just by way of a sidebar, the book of Genesis has a similar kind of story with Jacob, who worked for Laban. However, in that story, Jacob works for 7 years and then is tricked and is married to, I believe, Leah, and then works another 7 years. The way that it's narrated, certainly in the English, in the Hebrew scriptures, it sounds as though he worked 7 years and then got the daughter, and then worked another 7 years and then got, I think it was Rachel. I don't personally believe that is factually, or could be factually correct, because females grow very quickly, and waiting 14 years, obviously this story is told of great patience and so on. I just don't believe it's true. I don't believe that in a Middle Eastern culture they would have made the daughter wait 14 years to be married. He may well have insisted that you work 7 years for the first one and 7 years for the second one, and you can marry them both now, and the time starts now, and you're locked in for 14 years. That, may well have happened, but I simply don't believe that was the case that he made, because she'd been old maid by that time, you see. Now, with Musa, there is no hint of this at all. It's quite clear that he's marrying the girl. He's locked in for 8 years. He can choose to stay for another 2 years, but that he's married immediately. So the context is that Musa has been married for 8 years. He has a wife, and as we shall see the situation, I'm just going to look at it in the Arabic a little. It's, if you want to look it up yourself, it's 28, Surah 28 and verse 29. Now, as I say, this story finds several iterations, and you can compare them. Now, in the English, then when Musa had completed the term, so he's completed this term, this 8 years that he had agreed with his wife's father, and was travelling with his family, he perceived from the side of a mount a fire. And he said to his family, "Wait here, I perceive a fire, that haply I might bring you intelligence or a firebrand from the fire." And we don't have to go into the big depths of the Arabic, but لعلي, that haply I, آتكم منها بخبر أو حذوة من النار. So just in overview, that haply I may bring you, kum. Now, this is a plural. It is a plural. It denotes either a mixed sex of any number over 2, 3 or more. He cannot be talking only to females. So he's talking to a group of 2 or more. So we can deduce from that he's talking to his wife and 1 or 2 children, at least. And it says with his family. And the word is li'alihi, to his family. So he's talking to his family. He's in the desert. He's fulfilled this time. He's fulfilled his obligation to his father-in-law, and now he's starting out after at least 8-year or possibly 10-year period on a new venture. And this is the point at which he is called, and it continues, that happily you might warm yourselves. So he sees the fire. He says to his family, I'm going to go and see if I can find some news or a firebrand so that you plural, can warm yourselves. And then, moving into verse 30, then when he came to it, he was called from the right side of the valley on hallowed ground from the tree, O Musa, I am God, the Lord of all mankind. And the story begins. He's told to cast his staff and put his hand into his side and so on. My point is this, is that at that point he was with his family. He didn't say, you know what? I really need to get to a good place financially and wait until my children are all grown up. Because, look at it. He's being sent back to Fir'aun, to a psychopathic tyrant who has got legal grounds against him, to demand that he set the children of Israel free and let them go with Musa. Nowhere in this is there any hint of Musa or Musa's wife saying, you know what, we really don't think this is a good idea. We haven't planned for this. This isn't... What I'm trying to say is that if God is with you, he'll look after you. And if God isn't with you, it doesn't matter what you do, you won't be safe. In the Qur'an we read, there is no security except communication of God and his messages. And that's what I wanted to convey. I'm not giving you individual advice. I'm not telling you whether to have children or don't have children. I'm just really trying to say that we have so many gems in the Qur'an that we miss because we read quite quickly. But often the grammar will tell you in what's going on. In fact, more of what's going on, the Arabic grammar, than the English will give you access to. But even in English, he said to his family, wait here, that I might bring you intelligence. And that's one of the reasons why I insist on using thou and you in the translation, because it gives somebody with no access to the Arabic at least an idea that this is talking to a plural rather than to an individual. So Musa was with his family. He was in the desert with his family, and that was the point with a young family. We know for a fact that they were under 10 years old, well, under 9 years old maximum. So that's the point that he was sent with his family, and this is lost a little bit. We tend to forget about Mrs. Musa, but and the little Musas, they were all sent to Fir'aun, and God delivered them all. And that's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Quran alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.